Hi guys, today I've got something a little different for you all. I've decided to finally try audiobooks. If you've been on my channel before, then you may know that I read a lot of physical books, but I've never actually tried an audiobook before in my life. I'm so late to the party with this, and I'm clearly stuck in the Stone Ages because audiobooks are such a modern part of society, and I'm actually in shock that it's taken me this long to read one. Or listen to one. What is the appropriate phrase for that? So this week I tried my first ever audiobook, and here are my thoughts. Let me tell you, it was an interesting experience. I'm going to walk you through my first impressions, how I felt about it, the ups and the downs, and whether or not it's something that I would consider using regularly. So let's dive right into it. I hope you enjoy this video. Give me a thumbs up if you do, and let me know if you've ever tried audiobooks and do you use them regularly or not. How often do you listen to an audiobook? I'd be so intrigued to know. So before we start talking about my experience, I would just like to take a moment to thank today's paid partnership for the video, Everand. They have come at the perfect time for me, as I was actually thinking of trying my first audiobook at some point this year, and boom, Everand have answered my prayers. However, not only do they have audiobooks, but they also have ebooks as well, which I have used before. I do love ebooks. They save so much space because I don't have to have every single book I read displayed on my bookshelf behind me. There's just physically no room to keep them all. But I don't have to keep them all when they're stored on Everand. So Everand is a subscription-based service that gets you access to millions of ebooks and audiobooks all in one place. You can unlock free premium titles each month on Everand at the same cost of buying just one book on Audible. And if you want to get a 30-day free trial to test it out, then you can click the link in my description where you can start accessing premium titles with Everand instantly. So for the purpose of today's video, I am going to try my first ever audiobook through Everand. And if I find out that audiobooks aren't my thing, then I do have their ebooks just in case to fall back on. So thank you so much to Everand for sponsoring this video, and let's talk about my experiences of trying my audiobook. So the first time that I decided to try audiobooks, I was a bit skeptical. I've always been somebody who loves the feel of a book in my hands, the way that the pages feel, the whole reading ritual, you know? I feel like maybe I take it too seriously. Does anybody else like that? Like the actual feeling of holding a physical book? I feel like it's almost like a grounding ritual for me. It instantly relaxes me, even if I'm not in the headspace to read any of the book. Just holding it and opening it, oh, it does something to my insides, you know? But one of the main things that I'd heard about audiobooks is that they are perfect for people who have very busy lifestyles and who can't schedule out that time to sit and have that physical reading ritual. People who listen to audiobooks can read whilst doing other things. I consider myself to be somebody who is pretty busy. I mean, I constantly feel busy, but that is subjective because everybody has a different life, so my busy schedule will probably look relaxed compared to somebody else's busy schedule and vice versa. But on a general basis, I do feel very busy all the time, and I wish that I could sit and read my books more regularly than I actually am able to do. This is why I feel like audiobooks would actually be perfect for me, because I can still read and delve into a story whilst doing other things. So let's cut to a clip of me choosing my first audiobook. So as you can see, there's lots of different titles already recommended on here. I'm already reading Onyx Storm, so I won't need to read Fourth Wing, but if I want to do the immersion reading, that would be a good one because I have the physical copy and I could listen to the audiobook at the same time. Look, Iron Flame and Onyx Storm are on there. Oh, they've got the Akatars if anybody wants to try out those. Crescent City. Again, I could do immersion reading for that because I have the physical copy and I've not ever read that before, so I could listen to the audiobook and read the physical copy at the same time. That'd be cool. Oh my goodness, I've heard loads about White Lark and Divine Rivals as well. They might be quite good. Oh, something there about a dragon. Oh, these are so popular at the moment as well, these Frida McFadden books. Sorry guys, I'm genuinely getting very, very excited. Love it! Dune. Wow. Got your Harry Potters. Awesome. Well, I'm going to be kept very, very busy. I am going to have a think about what I want to read, and then I'll get back to you on what I've chosen. Hi, this is a bit of a weird angle, isn't it? I'm really crouched. So I've had a look at the selection that is available, and I have decided that the first audiobook that I am going to listen to is, I mean, this is probably very, very predictable, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R.R. Martin. This is my favourite book of all time. I've heard amazing things about the audiobook and I am going to use that as the first audiobook that I'm going to listen to. Don't worry, in this video I will also do a book that I've never read before. I'm aware that I already have read A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but I thought it would be cool to just do a book that I've never read before and a book that I love, because then if I don't enjoy it as much from the audiobook, then I'll know it's because of the audio feature. I'm also going to do an immersion read as well, which I think it's called immersion read, but based on my understanding of it, it's where you listen to the audiobook and read at the same time. So I'm going to do a mix of both. I'm going to listen to the audiobook when I'm doing things, when I'm multitasking, or I just don't have like that much time to sit down and read. I'm going to whack the audiobook on, and then when I've got time to sit and read with a nice drink, I'm going to whack the audiobook on and read at the same time. So I'll report back on what my experience is like with that, but I'm really excited that I'm going to be reading my all-time favourite book, listening to my all-time favourite book in this video. This has instantly made it like a million more times fun for me. So I'm excited to listen to this. I'm going to go and make a drink, a nice cup of tea, and start listening to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So of course I chose A Night of the Seven Kingdoms as my first audiobook. This is my favourite book ever. Also for today's video I'm going to test out two books. So I'm going to do an audiobook for a book I've read before and then a brand new audiobook for a story I've never read before. I wanted to pick A Night of the Seven Kingdoms because I knew that it would keep me engaged because I love the story and I know what's coming up. But it's almost like having a different take on it, and it wouldn't be too dense for a first timer. I felt like I can ease myself into it quite nicely, quite gradually. And then for the second book that I picked that I have never listened to or read before in my life, I decided to go for The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? I've definitely butchered his surname, I'm so sorry. One thing that I liked as well is that it tells you how long it's going to take to listen to it. So for The Alchemist, it says that it's going to take 4 hours. To me, that didn't feel so daunting. And I really like that it puts it into a time frame as to how long you can expect to read the book for. You don't get that with a physical copy of the book, so I did actually really enjoy that element to it. Now, when listening to my audiobook, I will admit it wasn't love at first listen, so I was feeling a little bit out of my element. It did feel a little bit weird at first because I've never read that way, and it also didn't feel like a podcast. So I do listen to podcasts quite regularly. I thought it was going to feel more like a podcast, but it actually didn't. It does feel very distinct that it is a story. It just feels a little bit odd that somebody was reading to me. I'm used to reading with my eyes, so reading with my ears was a bit of an adjustment at first. For one, I kept losing focus. I think that is just the way that my brain works. Sometimes that does happen when reading as well, and I would have to like flick back through the pages because I didn't actually process anything that was written down, and I found it a little bit more difficult with an audiobook to go back and like skip back over the bits that I may have missed because I wasn't focused on. I'd kind of have to like rewind it, and that didn't feel as accessible for me. I didn't find that I lost focus as much with A Night of the Seven Kingdoms because obviously it's my favourite book, and I think it's because I knew what was coming up. I knew what the story was, so I felt like I didn't miss anything because even if I zoned out, I still knew what happened because I've read it before. Whereas with The Alchemist, it was a completely different story. Like if I zoned out, I actually missed stuff. I've got to say as well, I do think that the voice narrator makes a massive impact. I feel quite fortunate because I quite liked the voice narrators for both of these books, especially the one for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Like it's the guy who plays Viserys Targaryen from Game of Thrones season 1, and he's got such a great voice. Whereas I do feel like if I didn't enjoy the narrator, I feel like that would really put me off a good book. So the story itself might be great, might be captivating, but if the narrator doesn't tell it to me in a way that I feel comfortable with, I feel like that will unfortunately change my perspective of the book, even when it's nothing to do with the book itself. So based on this experience, I felt like the audiobook was better for rereading. I found it more tricky to get into it with The Alchemist than I did A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So I actually feel like if I am wanting to reread books, but one of the main reasons why I don't reread is because I often think I have very limited time. Why would I spend it reading a book I've already read when I could read something new? I think that audiobooks will be perfect for that, because if I want to reread a story I've already read, I can listen to it, refamiliarize myself with it whilst doing other things and being productive in other areas. So I genuinely do feel like I will use audiobooks again to reread stuff I've already read. But I did find it a bit tricky for a brand new concept or a brand new book that I've never read before. I found it a lot more tricky to focus and to get into it, probably just because I'm not used to it. It also took me a little bit to get used to the pacing of the narration. Again, I feel like that might change depending on who the narrator is and how the story is told, and how they're reading out the writing style of the author. And maybe I was doing activities at first that were a little bit too overly stimulating. Like, I cannot imagine listening to an audiobook whilst doing something high energy like going to the gym. I even struggled when I was cleaning, and I wouldn't massively say that what I was doing was high energy, but it did feel a little bit too stimulating for an audiobook. So because of that, I decided to start listening to my audiobooks whilst doing relaxing, calming activities instead. One of the best experiences that I had with the audiobooks was when going for walks. Goodness me, going for a relaxing walk in the countryside, listening to my audiobook was a whole nother experience. That was my favourite part of this whole experience. I didn't enjoy the audiobook so much when I was cleaning, but I did love it when going for a walk. Normally when I go for a walk, I don't listen to anything. I don't listen to music, I don't listen to podcasts, I don't wear headphones or earphones. I just go out and listen to the outside world. However, I do feel like maybe every so often now, I might want to bring my audiobook with me. It was so relaxing. I suppose it again does depend on what book you're listening to, but I just really enjoyed that whole experience. And here's the interesting thing about the whole audiobook experience, was that the more I did it, the easier it got, the more natural it felt. Once I found the right time and place and activity to do whilst listening to my audiobook, it kind of felt like it clicked. I also found that it was helpful to listen to my audiobook whilst cooking as well. So cooking and walking, I feel like, were the activities for me that were great for listening to my audiobook. But some of my other more productive chores, like going to the gym or cleaning, I didn't find it worked too well for them. Normally because I like to listen to quite upbeat music when doing those things, and listening to audiobooks wasn't very upbeat. But I just love the fact that you can be doing something else, like you can be doing something really mundane whilst also losing yourself in a great story. And that's when I started thinking, okay, now I get it. Now I get why people listen to audiobooks. And some of it was just so relaxing. I think the biggest thing that I learned during this audiobook experience was how beneficial this is for people with busy schedules, or for people who maybe struggle to read or lose focus when looking at a page too much. I think for people like that, audiobooks seem like a great alternative. People who struggle to find the time to sit down and read. People who maybe just struggle to sit still as well, if you need to constantly be doing something, and that's hard to do if you're a very maybe like active or maybe even a fidgety person. I just feel like for people who also struggle with concentration, then listening to an audiobook is a great alternative. It's a whole new way to experience stories. Of course though, there are still many things that I prefer about a physical copy of a book. For me, nothing beats the act of sitting down, making myself a nice warm drink, flipping through the pages of my book, normally in the silence, and just getting really stuck into it. I love that. That is my calming, relaxing time for me. It's my me time. I also find that reading a physical book gives me the chance to pause, reflect, go back to certain parts. It's just a little bit trickier to do that with audio. However, I also combined the two, and I did something called an immersion read. Immersion reading is where you listen to the audiobook and read the physical book at the same time. Mind blown. So I obviously did this for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I got my headphones on, listened to my audiobook, and read my physical book at the same time. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This does defeat the purpose of an audiobook, because surely the audiobook is so that you can go and do other things. Whereas if I'm sat down reading a physical copy of my book and listening to the audiobook at the same time, then what is the point of the audiobook? But guys, this was such an immersive experience. There was nothing like it. I felt like I got so stuck into this book. I had Viserys Targaryen's beautiful voice in my head reading me the story. I was visualizing the characters how I wanted to, but I also didn't have to concentrate that much or put all of my focus into reading because it was being read out to me. So in my head, I was like playing a movie of the book and not having to really read. I feel like my eyes were skimming the page, but I wasn't really taking in the text because I was visualizing the story in my head so much more, like in so much more detail. This was such a fun part of the experience, guys. I really enjoyed that part. I'd highly recommend an immersion read if you have the availability to do so, because obviously you need the physical copy of the book as well. So I do also know as well, I've got Babel, my finger is near it, on my bookshelf, and I know that Everand also has Babel on their app, so I think I might do an immersion read for Babel as well, because I've never read that book before. And like I said, my test today with The Alchemist was to see how it felt with a book I've never read before, and it was a lot trickier with that one, I'm not gonna lie. I'm obviously gonna finish the whole book and the whole audiobook. I haven't done it yet, but if you would like me to do a review of the book when I do finish it, then please let me know. But I'm just intrigued to see how an immersion read would feel when I have the physical book in front of me as well. I think that would be a really cool experiment to do. I think I'm going to try that with Babel. So to start concluding with my thoughts on my first ever experience of listening to an audiobook, after trying an audiobook, I can definitely see the appeal. So for me personally, audiobooks will never replace the good old-fashioned feeling of sitting down with a good book and things just feeling really magical. Like I mentioned earlier, reading for me is my cozy me time. I treat it as something special and I just relax. I just sit down, read and relax. I tend to do it first thing when I wake up, last thing before I go to sleep. That is my time. Audiobooks won't replace that. For me, anyway. It's that sacred time where I'm disconnected from everything else. But audiobooks do have their place. They're perfect for that time where you're trying to squeeze in an element of reading whilst trying to juggle life's demands. Like if I'm going through periods of life that are just so busy, an audiobook is going to be my saving grace. And like I said, that immersion read as well, I would definitely do that again. And listening to an audiobook on my walks and cooking, it was so lovely. And especially with those walks, they kind of felt like me time as well. And they still felt like I was immersed in a magical story and enjoying that story in nature as well. So after trying audiobooks, I can definitely see the appeal. I think they're fantastic for multitasking, depending on what activities you do. There may be some people who can read audiobooks whilst doing any activity, but like I said, for me, it needs to be one that's not as mentally stimulating. Otherwise, I just completely zone out. They're great for people with busy schedules or people who just want a different way to read, or if you're like an auditory learner, or if you maybe have difficulties with concentration or sitting still, or maybe you don't have the availability to set aside some time to sit quietly and read. Audiobooks are going to be perfect for that. So in the future, I would probably try an audiobook again. Like I said, I might do it with Babel, but just kind of combining that with an immersion read. However, it's not going to be my go-to. That is just my personal take on it. That's just me. That's just my preference. We are all different. So I'm really curious to see what you think. So if you have tried audiobooks before, please do let me know in the comments what your experience was like with that and how often you use audiobooks. Do you prefer them over physical books? Do you feel the same way that I do? Have you ever tried an immersion read before? I'd be so interested to hear your opinions on that. I really hope that you enjoyed this different style of video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. I'd love to thank the sponsor of today's video again, Everand. Please do remember if you'd like to try their 30-day free trial so you can have a similar experience to what I did today, click the link in the description box. They have so many amazing titles on there. And it's not just audiobooks, they do have ebooks and podcasts as well. If you like my content and you want to see more from me, then please subscribe because it's free and it means that you'll see my videos easier. I also just want to give a huge shout out to the Dragon Riders who are supporting my channel. Thank you so much, it means the world to me. You are so appreciated. If you'd like to have your name featured in my videos like this one, then please consider becoming a Dragon Rider, or if you'd like to support the channel in any way, then please check out the channel memberships. Thank you so much for watching this video, I really appreciate it. I will see you next time, or rather you'll see me, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now.